This episode of Nos Audietis is sponsored by Full Pull Wines, a Seattle-based wine retailer and proud sponsor of Nos Audietis since 2011. Full Pull was founded in 2009, is based in Seattle, and is owned and operated by longtime Sounders supporters. They offer the best boutique wines of the world to members of their mailing list, with special focus on their home, the Pacific Northwest.
Hey, this is Christian Roldan.
And Jordan Morris from the Seattle Sounders Football Club.
And you're listening to
This is Nos Audietis. Thanks to Watson's Counter for sponsoring this episode. Located in Ballard, Watson's Counter is your neighborhood specialty coffee shop, brunch spot, and now coffee roaster. Sourcing exclusively high-scoring coffees, Watson's Counter has started their coffee roasting project to showcase amazing coffees grown around the world. Their first featured coffee is the beautifully complex washed Ethiopian Odola. Follow them on Instagram at Watson's Counter to keep up with all the upcoming releases, or check out their website at www.watsonscounter.com. Whether you want to stop by for your daily coffee to go or sit down for delicious Korean-inspired brunch, Watson's Counter has got you covered. Welcome back to another episode of Nos Audietis, the Sounder at Heart podcast. We are joined by a very special guest, someone that you know very well, Garth Lagerwey. What's your new title? Is it president of Atlanta United? What is your actual title?
It's president, CEO, or CEO and president. I never remember which one's supposed to come first, but I think it's CEO and president of Atlanta United.
Okay. Well, it's a good sounding title either way.
It's I guess it's what was I in Seattle? I was the
president of soccer.
President of that's right. We simplified it. We have general manager, president of soccer. Still a mouthful, but
it is.
Yeah.
But this sounds like you get CEO in there, and that's like, those are the big. That's where the fun starts, right? You get to be a C-suite.
It's and as you know, it's less about that, but it was strategically for me. It has been a really neat transition because now I'm over the business as well as over the soccer, and to have that insight and also be part of an NFL organization where you have insight into events in the stadium and a $2 billion asset that you're working off of to monetize, and it's a different project, and that part's been really, really fun.
So along those lines, now that you've gotten your hands dirty a little bit, you've been in the job for 6 months or so, what's been the biggest difference, and what are some things that you're getting to do at Atlanta that you just weren't really able to do in Seattle?
Everything on the business side, from managing budgets to, I'm trying to break it down to the most basic level. It's in Seattle, I would have to wait to see what resources were allocated to the soccer team. And here in the more strategic role, you're able to say, I want to allocate such and such efforts toward driving revenue. And then I'm going to direct the revenue into A, B, and C. On the soccer side. So it's still a shared enterprise. We share ticketing staff and corporate partnership staff and merchandising staff. So, it's not that simple, but it's really being involved in that stuff that really gives you just a degree of insight. And it was really important to me that I keep learning in my career. And it really is an opportunity for growth in the sense that the two folks that I work with most directly, Rich McKay is the CEO of Arthur Blank Sports and Entertainment, and 20 years running the competition committee in the NFL. Princeton grad, lawyer, just super accomplished guy with tons of sports executive experience to learn from. Then the other gentleman who's my direct boss is the vice chairman of Arthur Blank Sports Entertainment is Steve Cannon. The guy's number one in his class at West Point, ran Mercedes-Benz, and then came over to work for it. He did lots of other things along the way, but a truly global executive, and just the wealth of experience that those guys have, the number of years they have under their belt, running companies, running sports enterprises. It's been a really cool learning experience for me. And look, I have had lots of those in Seattle as well, but this is kind of a different skill set that I'm working with, and that's been really fun for me in terms of my own growth and development as I try to figure more and more stuff out.
So it seems like in sort of like
the popular discussion, you still get a lot of credit for the soccer stuff that's going on or maybe blame too. What's going on with the soccer stuff at Atlanta? In reality, how involved are you with the soccer side of the job?
Yeah, so I mean, look, the buck stops with me, right? So I'm responsible for everything. To your point, whether that's praise or criticism, it's still going to come my way. Same as in Seattle. Same as in Seattle, I'm building a team on the soccer side, and you're going to have scouts and you're going to have data analysts, and maybe the biggest add is we have Demetrius Estanafu, butchering the last name, but you can look it up on the website, and but Demetrius came over. He ran the CSO committee for the league for 10 years and ran the player department. He's a Harvard trained lawyer. Just a really, really high level guy. And so he can run all the transactions for us. And that honestly was the single most liberating thing for me, to be able to pop up and work on strategy. So now we're still going to source players in a similar process using scouting and analytics. Carlos will direct that. Carlos Bocanegra will direct that. You got Jonathan Spector, head of recruitment. You have people in the same roles at the Sounders. But now when it gets to a certain point, then they hand off to Demetrius, and Demetrius can execute the transaction. And if you're the general manager, with the skill set that I had, that's your job. You're in the trenches, you're negotiating, you're managing a visa process. Your fingernails are dirty. You're in the trenches. You're doing a lot of that stuff. And that's not to say that I do none of that now, but in general, we have folks that can handle that, which allows me then to step away and be strategic. So now the summer transfer window becomes, here's the blueprint I want to get to. So I'm setting the plan and the course of the ship, but somebody else is on the rudder, steering the ship. And so again, my role becomes strategic, and it becomes about hiring the right people and putting the right processes in place to hopefully empower everybody and also to make them successful. So that's it. And that Carlos and Gonzo sit on a level together. Gonzalo reports to Carlos, but that's down within the soccer hierarchy. I'm not doing the day-to-day. I'm not going to practice. I'm not, interacting with the head coach on a day-to-day basis.
And so I guess the other aspect of this, how's your family settling in Atlanta?
I think my wife's not pissed at me anymore. We love Seattle. I'd never tried to hide that. It was a wonderful place, wonderful, all my kids know. My oldest is 11, and, that means he was 3 when he moved to Seattle, and, my youngest was born there. So that's all they know. So Atlanta's definitely hotter. There are definitely more churches. It's a different culture, right? I mean, Seattle is a liberal West Coast city, and that's got a different feel than a purple, diverse Georgia. And there are pros and cons, and definitely some of both. And so, moving's hard on a family. And, everyone assures me that, it makes your kids resilient. And I have no doubt that that's true, but the process of acquiring that resiliency has some bumps along the way. And do I think they'll be better for it? I do, and I believe that sincerely. But does that mean it's all smooth and easy? To at one point our dog was too big to fit in the crate to fly on the size plane you could get from Seattle. So my wife drove with the 3 boys and grandpa and the dog, and 2 weeks, and I'm working 100 hours a week in my new job here, trying to get everything set up on this end. And so it's been a process, man, but it's been fun. It's been a challenge, and we're getting adjusted, and certainly it'll be nice to be back in Seattle and see lots of familiar faces again.
So is the fam coming out with you?
They are not able to, because here, this is crazy, Jim. For 15 years between Salt Lake and Seattle, we do the transfer window, right? Always ends first week of August, and then you go take a vacation if you're in any of these soccer roles. In Atlanta, though, school starts August 2nd. So now transfer window ended, and the kids are in school. So it's like they would love to come out, but they just started school, all in new schools, obviously. So it just wasn't in the cards for them to be able to make it out this time, which is a bummer.
So what was the big buy-off for them? Was it a pool? Was it a pony? Was it an Xbox? What was the thing that you had to buy the kids off with?
So without embracing that as a parental strategy, I will acknowledge that it does work some of the time. What I'll say is the real estate dollar goes a little bit further in Georgia than it does in Seattle.
Okay.
And so we were able to put in a pool, and the kids do like that. And, now conversely, it's 100 degrees for a month at a time here. So I would say there's more need for a pool here than there might be in Seattle. And, in Seattle, you're never too far from a lake or a river or a stream that you can jump in and go swimming, or a sound or an ocean or whatever. But yeah, it's been nice to have the pool. The kids have liked that. And, the rest of it's life. It's finding a Taekwondo studio and a soccer team. And, my 5-year-old is, he doesn't know what he's going to do, but I think he's going to be the rough and tumble one of the three. So we'll figure out whether that winds up in prison or in a more productive enterprise. But there are definitely days you feel like it could go either way.
Yeah. No, I'm with you there as a parent myself. But so do you still get to talk? Like, I know one of the things you expressed when you were leaving is that you didn't think you'd get to talk pop culture, politics, those kind of things as much in the office, and maybe even with your beat writers that you interact with. Is that come to fruition, or have you found ways to interject those discussions into?
Well, you know how socially awkward I am, Jeremiah. So I still interject them. The question is just whether or not they're received or not. And I'm not kidding too. I turned 50 this year, and some of my pop culture references not that relevant to staff that is 25 years old. Some of them have not seen all the terrible movies that I've seen. And but I'll tell you this, a point of significant pride for me. My 11-year-old, who is my biggest D&D enthusiast, of my kids so far. We looked long and hard to try to find like a D&D game or parents or whatever. And so we started the D&D club here in Atlanta. And so he's got right now like 8 to 10 kids that are coming once a week, and they're getting together Sunday afternoons to play a game. So I couldn't be prouder of him that he is, he's the dungeon master and he's running this game. And so it was, good little entrepreneur, opportunity for him. Not that they're making any money, but just, as an organizing principle. And so we're trying to keep a little bit of that Seattle flame alive and well here in Atlanta.
Well, I'm very happy to hear that. Very happy to hear that. So I guess one of the things that you were a big champion of, or a big believer of before you left, I guess, was Leagues Cup. And we're seeing Leagues Cup could be a completely different animal this year. What's been your observation of Leagues Cup?
I love it. I think it's fantastic. We went out in the group stage.
So you may have heard the Sounders did too.
That's not my purview, but we lost to Cruz Azul in penalties, but it was a really cool game, Jeremiah, and it reminded me of the Pumas match, or of playing Lyon in the Leagues Cup, back in 21, where you had this multicultural audience, and you had this dynamic of kind of friendly rivalry within the stadium and stuff like that, and it meant basically any play that happened in the game either way got loud, raucous support. And it does make for a fun atmosphere, I think, in which to watch a soccer game. So I got to witness that. Obviously, we didn't go as far as we wanted, so but watching the games on TV, what I would say is this. I mean, lots of friends of mine that grew up in the game and stuff like that, but they don't always text when they're watching, Atlanta play Seattle, for example, right? Mm-hmm. But all of a sudden, I started getting these texts like, how cool is it that they're playing these games 4 days a week, and I'm staying up with my kid and we're watching the Mexico against America or Mexico against Canada games. This rivalry is really taken. And, this is total anecdotal, but like, I think the first 5 Mexico against America games in Leagues Cup all had a red card, right? Like they clearly, people cared about this game. And so, it's, I think it's been really neat. I think it's a really good way to capture the audience long term. And like, look, as MLS, I think one of the strategies that can work is if we can be everybody's second team. If you're the guy that wants to go to the pub and watch the Premier League on a Saturday, go to a Sounders game, go to an Atlanta United game because that's local and you can take your family there. If you're a Liga MX fan, or you grew up in Mexico and you come here, again, go to an Atlanta United game, go to a Seattle Sounders game, take your kid there, because those are cool, authentic environments, and they're really fun, right? And now maybe you can't. People are always like, "Well, you're never going to convert an America fan to an Atlanta United fan." I said, "That's not the outcome. We don't need to take away someone's culture. We just need to build upon it with the soccer culture. And if we're inclusive and we're diverse, then what we say is we want to try to look like Atlanta, which is a pretty diverse place." And we have this wonderful building, $2 billion building, nicest soccer stadium in the world, where everybody feels safe and everybody feels like they can express their culture. That's probably a pretty successful formula for how we're going to grow this. And I do think that the Leagues Cup can be an important part of that. I mean, I think it's a really cool idea. Certainly Messi put some rocket fuel behind it.
I was going to say.
And look, like we're all like, but we've got into the mainstream media with this stuff too, right? I mean, is Messi going to win every game for Miami? maybe he will, but I think he's going to play the toughest defense that he's faced so far in Nashville in the final. I think that's a really good matchup on paper. That's a lot of fun to watch potentially.
Yeah. And you got to experience Messi mania up close and personal, right?
I didn't go in person to the game we played down there, but certainly I painfully watched us get. It was not our best night against Messi.
Although he's making a lot of people have not their best night, admittedly. In fact, it almost seems like he casts a spell on defenses where we saw this last night against Philadelphia, where it's like, they're just not marking him when he doesn't have the ball at his feet? What is going on here? We saw it. Like, is there something that you appreciated watching him play your team that maybe you don't appreciate when you are watching him play a random opponent?
Look, what I give him a ton of credit for so far is he cares, right? Which is maybe not shocking, but was also not a given.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We've had aging Europeans come here, and obviously it's South American, but I mean, guys who played in Europe who have not been 90 minutes engaged, right? Not only is he engaged, but he's, wants to play and wants to play the whole way and wants to. But the other thing he's doing is on the field, he's actively coaching his teammates. He's trying to make everybody. He reminds me of Ladero, honestly, in terms of the immediate impact on everyone around him. He's been a force magnifier for them. The other thing that I think is critical is Busquets. He had a pass against us, but he's had some passes against a couple of teams now where, he can basically pick something out anywhere on the field. And so, he's not the most mobile guy in the world. So you'd think, is he going to struggle? But so far, the ball's been able to move for them in a way that has been really tough to defend. And I felt like Philly was almost like experimenting last night. Like, we're going to try this kind of, it wasn't their normal defensive pressing setup all the time, right? They were trying to figure out, what do we do with Messi? What do we do with Busquets? How do we line all this stuff up? And so I think it'll be interesting. I think that'll be an iterative process until somebody beats him, right?
Yeah. So the other thing that Messi has brought is this sort of, idea. He's sort of an idea as much as he is a player that, there's no player out there that's too unattainable for MLS. If you can get Lionel Messi the year that he won, or effectively within the year that he won World Cup, who can't you get, right? And I'm just curious, what are you seeing, and how does it change your mindset as someone involved in the soccer the soccer team building aspect of this? Like, how does this change the way you approach that? And is there a danger, or what are the how do you see this changing?
Yeah, so look, I'd like to start by heaping some praise on Chris Henderson, a gentleman known to both of us, longtime Seattle Sounder. And, Miami got kicked in the teeth a whole bunch about, and to be clear, Chris took that job, found out that there was going to be sanctions after he took the job, right? So it's been literally working with one arm tied behind his back. And now going into this season, they had the possibility of getting Messi, right? They didn't know if he was going to come or not. People underestimate. Yes, you could sign any player in the world, but this took 3 years. I mean, this is full on, right? And with engagement from literally the owners, of the team to Messi and his group. And so what Chris did a really good job of, though, was creating all this cap space and the spots into which they could sign these players, right? To add 6 players in a transfer window is extraordinary, right? Now, there's more to go into it. It's not just Chris, right? Obviously, people want to come play for Tata. People want to come play with Messi. I buy that. But Chris really did an exemplary job, I think, in terms of organizing this and setting the platform for it and really making it possible within the league's rules. So I think that's one impact of, you got to be willing, if you're going to try to pull this off with a summer transfer, to suffer, right? And again, not unlike the process we went through in 16 a little bit, where we held resources open for Ladero and signed the best player we could, even though that took months, even though we weren't sure he was going to come. So I think there's some reinforcement there that going for that player that's just better than all the other players is worth some struggle. I do think that it highlights that people will pay for quality. When you look at the number of, I know Apple hasn't released any of the subscriber numbers, but anecdotally feels like among my friends, more people are watching. People are watching Messi. Hopefully some more people in Mexico are watching through Leagues Cup. And again, that timing, that partnership, I think was really good strategically to introduce Messi in that time frame, in that competition. So I do think it's going to evolve, at least the way people regard the league. And to your point, I think it shows the potential the league has. That we made this big investment, but to be clear, Miami's not going to lose money on this. This wasn't just a money dump, or we're going to go get a name and market it. You look at the social media increase, you look at the increase in jersey sales, you look at the increase in tickets, you look at the fact they're opening a new stadium, you look at the increase in sponsorship. All of those are measurable metrics where you can say, hey, yeah, they're paying a lot of money for Messi, but they're making money. And that's the encouraging thing. Jeremiah, we were talking off camera about the iterative process of Sounder at Heart and, leaving SB Nation and what that's like, and acquiring paid subscribers. I mean, it's a new business model, right? So might Messi and some increased investment, might this be a new business model for the league? It could be. Now, to be clear, Messi is one of one. You're not going to sign another Messi. There isn't another Messi. But I do think that there's now some evidence, some hard evidence, that if you increase the level of play, maybe that's by simplifying the salary cap. Maybe it's eliminating some of the DP buckets. Maybe it's into some of the TAM and the GAM and all the stuff that makes the league really confusing to follow. I think, there is some opportunity now to examine that and to see if we can make it more accessible to general sports fans. So now maybe Messi captured a couple folks that weren't paying attention before, and now can we keep them by having a system that's transparent, that everybody can understand, and that maybe is moving forward in terms of providing more options, more ways in which to spend money on teams, so you get some creative team building.
Do you think we'll see any of those changes implemented before next season?
I have no idea, Jeremiah. That's ownership level discussions above my pay grade.
Figured I had to ask though.
Well, look. I as you know, I've been a long-term proponent, just of the evolution of the league, and it's always. I'm an executive. It's not my money. At the end of the day, the people risking the money have to be the ones that decide if that's the way they want to go. But I do think that there's now some evidence, some proof, so to speak, that could be a way to go. The specter of the NASL still seems to haunt us in the background from the 70s, the 70s, 80s, I guess. But it's a new world, and I do think there's some real opportunity for MLS going forward. And look, I would also add, shame on us if we don't take this opportunity now, between now and the 2026 World Cup. When you're talking about Copa America in 24, Copa Centenario. Obviously, had some amazing games in Seattle, right? And Messi played, and we saw the U.S. in the quarterfinal against Ecuador. Games where we remember where we were for those games, right? I believe it was the most successful commercial enterprise in the history of this country. Not the history of this country, but soccer competition from a MLS perspective. So this becomes a massive tournament. Looking for us in Atlanta, Messi's going to play with Thiago Almada. That's pretty neat for us if we're able to host some games in association with that. Then followed by the Club World Cup. So, obviously a tournament near and dear to the hearts of Sounders fans, and then the World Cup. So we got this literally once in a lifetime ramp to try to. That I think we owe it to ourselves to try to get on the ramp and to try to push as much as we can to make this thing as big as we can.
Well, I'm running out of time here on my end. I did a poor job of scheduling, but I do have. I want to get in one sort of Sounders question for you. And we just got through the summer transfer window. The Sounders were, I think, the only team who didn't make a move during the summer transfer window. Atlanta obviously made a few notable moves. But what do you, looking at this, and there's a lot of frustration, I think, in the fan base, somewhat understanding, but also just sort of frustrated that nothing changed during the offseason. What's your assessment of the sort of the roster that you left Craig Waibel with, and do you think there's anything that maybe fans don't entirely understand about the challenges that the Sounders face going into this transfer window?
Well, look, I'm going to answer this by speaking through an Atlanta United lens, and what I would say is the ability to not have to do a bunch of things is a real privilege, maybe one that I underestimated, because I think the last summer that I was with Seattle, I think we also didn't do anything in the summer.
Correct.
But you come to Atlanta, and we're trying to institute a little bit different model than what they've had here in the past. But it's been really, really challenging. We have a number of guaranteed contracts over the long term that we don't have flexibility with. We've had to reposition some things, and we've been as focused on moving players out as on bringing players in. It's been a really complex enterprise. It's been a lot of work, and I think we probably have one more transfer window before we get to the foundation that I want to have to build us for sustainable success long term. So look, what I would say is the Sounders are in really good hands with Craig Waibel. Obviously, he was my right-hand guy the last couple of years there. Adrian Hanna are still one of the most engaged, if not the most engaged owner in the league, very knowledgeable in terms of the workings of the league and the team. You got long-term stability in the organization. So you got a vocal, supportive fan base. So you got all the ingredients you look for to have a successful franchise. And, certainly, in moving on, it's given me some perspective on some of the challenges of having to institute a new plan in a new place.
Well, Garth, thank you so much for taking the time. I want to wish you the worst of luck on Sunday, however. But I know you're making it out here, right? You're gonna be in, and it looks like you're gonna be greeted to like a beautiful 75-degree summer day that will hopefully make you long for the summers of the Pacific Northwest. But other than that, I hope things are going well for you.
Thanks, Jeremiah. I appreciate it. It'll be good to be back and see folks and see familiar faces, and hopefully not everybody in the stadium's booing me when I walk in.
No, I'm sure there won't all be boos. I heard you had to be talked out of like making a pregame speech, though.
You never know, Jeremiah. You put a microphone in front of me, you never know what's going to happen. But no, it'll be good to be back, and I'll just want to be part of it. And we've had a lot of successful folks come back, and we've had some really good moments, with some of those ex-players and stuff like that over the years. So I'm looking forward to it. And like you said, coming back to Seattle in August, that's about the best time of year you could possibly come back for. So I'm sure it'll be lovely.
You planned it out very well, Garth.
Yeah.
Well,
organized schedule.
Exactly. Well, that's that. I have to actually go run to my exit interview with Vox Media. So,
all right.
And that's a good segue to me just saying thank you for listening to Nos Arietes, the Sounder at Heart podcast. We are getting ready to transition to an independent model of media. We are dying to get listener, reader support. You can sign up for a paid subscription. That move is going to happen on Monday, August 21st. And I just kind of wanted to share that with everyone. So thank you to Garth for doing this. Thank you to our sponsors, Full Pool Wines, Watson's Counter. I am Jeremiah Shan, signing off for Sounder at Heart and Nos Arietes. Remember, you'll never be out alone.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Nos Arietes. As you may know, we are transitioning to becoming a primarily listener-supported podcast. One of the perks of becoming a paid subscriber is getting the full version of interview episodes like this one. If you're interested in hearing the rest of the interview and supporting independent soccer media, head over to nosarietas.substack.com and become a paid subscriber.